You are listening to Venus Rose, interactive spiritual Q&A and the power of sound.
Music is like sunshine.
Hello, conscious souls. How are you feeling? It is still a bit cold where I live, although the sun is shining. My favorite weather for running, to be honest. Mars has entered his home sign Aries yesterday, and as the planets are continuing to pile up in that zodiac sign, the fire energies are increasing in our planetary field. To go on a run, for me, is the most appropriate way to metabolize the current intensity. It helps me integrate the energy into my body in order to transcend an old threshold. I will be going on a special trip to do spiritual grid work with Soul Family very soon. And I want to be prepared as good as possible to be able to hold as much light as needed within my physical vessel for this event. I would like to invite you to my YouTube channel named Crystal Seraphim Sounds. Many people who are listening to the podcast on regular basis have not noticed it yet. Not everyone is looking at the show notes, and I still have to get used to the fact that things need to be repeated more often. There is one soundbite that assists in particular with increasing the light within the cells of the bodies. It is called the Diamond Light Body Activation, and I will leave the link below in the show notes. For all of you who are not familiar with the term spiritual grid work, it is a way to do energy work for planet Earth. I usually do it alone when traveling to sacred sites around the globe. I am honored and excited to be with others this time. Afterwards, I will go hiking on my own. Can't wait to explore a new area. Anger and aggression are emotional states that often come up when it's talked about Aries. The cardinal fire has the tendency to be impulsive. That facilitates emotions to rise up high real quick. I'm thinking about my nephew. One of my nephews has his moon in Aries, and it's not easy for him to regulate his emotions. Anyway, one of the main reasons why I want to reflect with you about anger is not only that planet Mars is pushing, but because many people in the spiritual community, often women, try to avoid these emotions or simply do not know how to deal with them. Spiritual bypassing is a common phrase in this community where so-called toxic positivity is used to avoid uncomfortable feelings. In order to truly evolve as a being, whether specifically spiritual or not, for me personally, we are all a part of spirit anyway. It is not absolutely necessary, but the only way. We have to be conscious with our own wounds and understand why certain things trigger us. In general, underneath the anger lies a wound from childhood. A trauma, most of the time, when it comes to boundaries that have not been respected by others. Deep-seated grief is also often a factor that can be from ancestral lineages too. Often when something tragic has happened, which was swept under the rug, choleric temperament or other outbursts of anger or aggression can show up. In my one-on-one sessions, these things come to the surface. The voices of the feminine has been silenced for far too long. There's a lot of anger there. Within the male body as well. Still not everywhere appropriate for a man to cry openly. I had an interesting conversation on a birthday gathering some days ago. The teacher explained to me how many studies there are about how women feel towards their children, but that research seldom checks how intense fathers may feel. She said that the desire to care, not only to provide for a child, but to be there emotionally for a kid too, is deeply ingrained in more men than society currently acknowledges. If deep emotions, like anger, for example, are not addressed over a certain period of time, depending on the individual, it can also manifest itself as a dis-ease in the body. I want to repeat what I said earlier, that the feminine energy has been silenced, physically showing up through different kind of thyroid malfunctions that many women have. The throat chakra is or was blocked, the chakra of speaking one's truth. Since this is many thousands of years old, it runs through lineages all over the world. How many women are not even fully aware that they are angry? Because of this, and that they've been taught to be nice, to smile, and that it is not appropriate to throw tantrums. For example, in Germany, there is a whole generation of women who were not properly honored since they've built up the country again in the aftermath of World War II. They are called rubble women. Most of the men were dead. There were mainly women left. On the male side, the heart chakra were often blocked. They were sent into the wars. A lot of rage is there as well. In many one-on-one sessions, the anger came through as a lingering current. From the questions that I received, the most prominent, especially from women, is, am I allowed to be angry? And what is the best way to face it? First of all, thank you, as always, for sending the questions in. And yes, you are allowed to feel anger and address it. As I said in the beginning of this episode, it is absolutely necessary to be aware of your emotions. It is not possible to balance oneself out and live true authenticity without living the whole range of human emotions. I'm totally for being honest, first and foremost with yourself. In this case, it means try to get to the bottom of why there is this feeling. It is a frequency that costs a lot of energy. The reason why it takes its toll on the body so quick. I personally am seldom that pushed, but when I am, I'm every time so astonished how much vitality it robs. It is literally a lower energy that contracts rather than expands. Some weeks ago, I felt rage. Kali herself was my guest. Anger comes up when boundaries have been crossed or need to be drawn. However, the tone is important, at least to me. the setting needs to be considered. A certain amount of respect is, from my perspective, always essential. To me, it does not matter if it is business-wise or personal. Address things honest, clear, and direct, if you can, but calm. It is important that wrath is not scattered at others that have nothing to do with the root cause. Breath is crucial. It is our direct connection to Source Creator. And breathing techniques like box breathing on the count of 4 is used to calm down the nervous system. I heard that even the military uses it. My beloved flower essences can also help. Even better when you have already distinguished from what kind of wound the anger comes from. I recently worked with a client and she mentioned that shame comes up after she was angry and spoke her mind. Shame is a frequency that shrivels any kind of expansion or growth. Nobody is perfect and we need to have compassion with ourselves. Take one step at a time, breathe, and be centered in your heart, so we can balance and not be consumed and owned by anger. I love to hear from you. Aries season is closing next week with the new moon and the stellium of 8 planets in Western astrology. You can leave questions in the comments of my YouTube channel named Crystal Seraphim Sounds or my Instagram. For those of you who do not have social media and love to send questions or would like to book a one-on-one session to go on a soul sound journey with me to learn how to release anger more permanently, send me an email for further details. You can find everything in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in. I wish you a beautiful weekend. Love to you all. Rose.